Remember when you used to just play, make noises, make messes, say exactly what you felt with no fear of being too much? This episode is for the girl you were before the world got a hold of you and told you who you should be. Because healing your womb isn't just about hormones. It's about reclaiming the parts of you they said were too sensitive, too weird, or too loud. Hi, I'm Adrienne Irizarry. I'm an East Asian medicine practitioner who is passionate about women's health and helping women to live their best lives. My goal is to put you in the driver's seat of your health, offering holistic solutions for a symptom-free life. Statements made in this program are for educational purposes only and not intended as a substitution for medical consultation or advice. We do not claim to diagnose, treat, or cure any diseases. This podcast is inclusive and welcomes all gender identities. The focus of the program is on biological function, and we will use the term women throughout, but it is referencing physiological and social challenges for biology, not identity. Come as you are, I am happy you're here and welcome all performances of identity. I hope you find something helpful in this show. Welcome back to another episode of the Reproductive Rebel podcast. This week, I want to talk about reclaiming the wild one, the soft one, the girl who laughed too loud, who cried too easily, and played without shame. Any of those things resonate with you? Where did she go? Like so many of us, she disappeared as the world got a hold of her and started telling her what she should do, how she should act, right? The burden of the world's expectations got too loud and too much. And so many of us lose sight of who we are and that little girl inside of us because we are too distracted and too dominated by the world and its expectations around us. And as we lose sight of that little girl inside of us who used to love with reckless abandon, and anybody who has a child and gets to watch the world through the eyes of their child, you see their vulnerability and their authenticity and the fact that they just experience the world for all of the magic that it holds and the wonder, right? There's nothing more beautiful, at least from my perspective, than watching my kids when they were growing up and watching them just explore the everyday, what we would consider mundane things, and find the magic in them. Or taking the paper towel roll and turning it into a sword and run around the living room like they are a superhero or something of that nature, right? We used to be like that too. We had all of that wonder and all of that play. And the reason that I am bringing this up in an episode this week is because when we lose touch with that, we get sick. We play it small. We begin to lose our connection with our creativity because our womb space holds our creativity, the seat of our creativity. Our creative energy comes from this place. And it doesn't mean that you have to have babies in order to create from your womb. It is your energetic powerhouse in your body that life springs forth from. Whether you are creating life in the traditional sense of giving birth to a child, or you are birthing a concept, a program, a job, a career, a dream into the world. And now a break from our conversation for a partnership message. You've been told to hustle, grind, wake up early, and do more. But here's the truth: rest is the most productive thing you can do. And the right kind of rest starts with Sia Silk Sleep Mask, your new sleep sanctuary. I've tried so many sleep masks, and I thought I just had to deal with the discomfort of slipping straps and light still getting through. But then I found this one, and I'm never going back. Made of 100% mulberry silk, it's the only mask that creates total blackout with its comfortable, oversized eye cups that don't smush my lashes while feeling weightless on my face. My sleep, next level. This isn't just a sleep mask, it's an investment in your nervous system. Sia Silk is a women owned small business committed to high quality and sustainable luxury. Check out the show notes for the link to grab yours and rest like you mean it. And now, back to the show. I think about movies where you see the person who is trying to write. Like there's lots of like romantic comedies or dramatic comedies or whatever that, there's somebody who's trying to write and they have writer's block and they're pacing and they're trying to slog through this book chapter because they have to get it to their publisher or whatever, right? They are stressed because they have a deadline and they have to get this creative thing to somebody by a certain deadline, which further compounds the problem, right? It's a perfect example of expectations and stress muting creative expression. So when they go out and they live a little bit, and that's usually where the dramatic comedy or the romantic comedy part comes in. They go away on a vacation to try to get their mojo back and they meet the love of their life, but there's usually stupid stuff like they get all awkward in public and they fall over a railing and this is the person that comes and like helps them up out of the mess, right? Like we've all seen these movies. But the whole point of this is they actually have to go out into their life and they have to live a little bit and have the status quo shook up. And usually there is a piece of this where you are being truly seen by this other person and unconditionally loved and accepted for all of the creative chaosy mess that you are, right? We've seen all these rom-coms. But there's a lot of truth in this. And that's why I really felt called to do this episode, because we lose our playfulness, and play helps us to tap into our creative abilities. In today's world with so many computer-driven things and we sit at desks and we don't get outside in nature and all of this stuff, we lose touch every single day with that creative powerhouse power we have inside of our body. And the more stress that we layer in on top of it, the worse it gets. But if you can think back to what it was like when you were a child, before the world got a hold of you, before you knew the stress of needing to pay a mortgage and needing to look a certain way or act a certain way, you weren't buried under the expectations of the rest of the world. Think about what brought you joy. For me, I had these little, at the time, rock tumbling was a big thing. I know I'm dating myself a little bit, but rock tumbling was a big thing. And I had these little rock tumbled amethysts that I used to carry in my pocket everywhere. And for some reason, they were my pride and joy. I have no idea why back then they called to me so loudly. Now, as an adult, knowing that amethyst is my birthstone and all of these things, like there was definitely an energetic frequency connection there. But I was so proud of these things. I used to love to swing on the swing set and swing as high as I possibly could because I felt free and like nobody could touch me. I used to like to ride my bike. I could ride my bike or jump rope outside from the time the sun came up until it went back down again. Those things brought my soul joy. The wind in my hair, being outside, these were things that felt aligned and like I was truly alive. And then I would come inside and there'd be you are dirty, go wash your hands or go wash your face before we eat. And, if I talked when adults were talking, I was to be seen and not heard. There was a big expectation, at least in my generation, of kids being seen and not heard, right? I used to listen to lots of conversation and I learned a lot by listening, but it had an effect on whether I felt like I could use my voice or not. And that imprinted well into adulthood. So this podcast is an act of rebellion in and of itself because I stopped giving a shit about the expectations of the rest of the world and said, I have something important to say and I'm going to use my voice. But it took me a lot of work to get there. And I'm encouraging you to get curious. Okay, this is another episode where I'm inviting you to get curious, just like I've done in past episodes, where I want you to think about what used to bring you joy. And when did that joy disappear? Was it because somebody told you were too loud? Was it somebody that told you were too much? That you were supposed to be ladylike and keep your dress clean? Don't rip your tights. I remember I had an accident at school when I was young. I think I was like first grade. And I had begged and begged to wear my Easter dress to school. And my mother begrudgingly allowed me to do so. And I wore my little woven tights and my dress, and I felt so pretty and I was so excited and it brought me joy. And I took a lot of care of myself when I was on the playground because I promised my mother I was not going to damage this dress. And I got pushed down on the playground as everybody was being called in from recess. A very overzealous boy leveled me as I was going in, and I ripped the knees of my tights. My dress was okay, but my tights were ruined. And I was more upset about the fact that my tights were ruined than I was about the fact that I had to dig rocks out of my knees, because there was this expectation that I needed to keep it perfect. I needed to keep it clean. And I was afraid of the outcome. So we make decisions in these innocent, childlike years of our lives because we're afraid of judgment. We're afraid of punishment. We're afraid of not being accepted for who we are, or we try to be something that we're not, for being accepted by others.
And now we will take a short break from our episode to share an offering that will take your healing to a whole new level. How would it feel to stress less, feel more spaciousness in your body, all while reducing physical symptoms? I can tell you from personal experience, it's one of the most empowering and freeing experiences one can have. Rebel Remembered is a year-long journey using goddess archetypes, body wisdom, and ancient modalities to bring a level of health to your body unlike anything else. As a Chinese medicine practitioner, it has always been clear to me that the emotional body is at the root of physical symptoms in the body. This program is truly holistic, addressing physical symptoms by exploring spiritual and emotional themes, much like this episode. This opportunity only opens once a year, so be sure to get on the waiting list for when enrollment opens this fall. The link is in the show notes. And now, back to the show.
gosh, I see this so hard with my teens right now. Things that used to be, like, creative and joy-filled, and they used to, like, goof around, and it was just so innocent and playful and fun, and my oldest now is so motivated by the criticism and judgment of others that they no longer stand in their own sovereignty and just live life on their own terms. And it's so common. Teen years are so hard, and for a lot of us, if it didn't start happening in childhood, it started to happen in our teen years, where somebody says something and you think there's something wrong with you, and I'm using "wrong" in air quotes, that you need to modify who you are and your behavior in some way in order to be appropriate again. But here's the thing. We, particularly as women, have been so shaped by the patriarchal expectations. Being a lady in the street and a freak in the bed. A lady in the street and a freak in the bed. Not being too emotional. If you cry, all of a sudden you're too emotional. Even the medical model, you go to your doctor and you're emotional and they say, "This is in your head, you're crazy, you're being too emotional about it," when your intuition knows that there's something that's not right. So, where did this person go? And can we get her back? So, I invite you with this episode to really sit with what brings me joy. Were there practices, souvenirs, creative projects like crocheting or knitting? Were there things that I used to do when I was younger that brought me a lot of joy that I don't do any longer because somebody said something to me about changing the way I moved through the world? Sometimes those critics are subtle. Sometimes they're very overt. But a lot of times these become the voices that we internalize as we build this inner critic that lives inside of our head. A lot of the times, the things that we criticize are actually not us doing the talking. It is a manifestation of the voices outside of us that have become the inner monologue. You had a parent that told you were being too loud and too boisterous and sit down because this is not what little girls do. And you took that to heart. And the more we squash that childlike innocence, that creativity, that authenticity, that living in a free and open way that is in integrity and in alignment with our truth, the sicker we become. I watched my whole 20s get completely gobbled up by health-related problems. I was such a frequent flyer at the doctor's office in my 20s, it was stupid. I had GERD, so I was dealing with awful acid reflux. I was dealing with diarrhea, chronic diarrhea. Come to find out later in my late 20s that I had celiac disease and I had no idea what the hell that was. I had endometriosis, so I had painful periods that were completely debilitating. They were all over the place. I would have migraines beforehand, so I went to a neurologist for a while. Like, my life was a fucking mess. But during those years of my life, I look back at it and I realized I was playing small, that I was trying to be what everybody expected me to be. Perfect. responsible, a hard worker. And I am all of those things. But I was trying to do it at a cadence that fit the hormone pattern of a dude and not of a woman. I had no idea how to honor my natural cycles and rhythms. I was ashamed and made to feel shame by external conversations about the fact that I felt things in a big way. Fast forward, I'm empathic. There weren't words for that in my family. There weren't words for that when I was in college. I didn't know what it was to be an empath or a highly sensitive person. I had no idea that I had extrasensory perception skills, and that's why the world felt so fucking big to me. But I had many people be like, "Don't cry, I'll give you something to cry about." If you cry and you're at work, people are going to think you're weak. I mean, the things that I internalized. And the more I internalized it, I stuffed it all down inside of my body and it showed up as chronic illness. And I'm not the only one. I see this in people all the time that walk through my practice, which is why I felt like this episode was so important because it touches on two things. Thing number one is that we collectively have been shaped by patriarchal narrative that tells us what the standard of beauty is, how we're supposed to move through the world, and what it looks like to be a successful female-bodied person. But those are standards that were superficially created externally. None of these things being in alignment or integrity with who you are as a person. And the more we try to fit into somebody else's box, oftentimes the sicker we get because we are out of alignment with our truth, who we are. When we get back to the kinds of play that brought us joy as a child. I mean, I think about swinging high on the swings, right? I didn't have a care in the world. I felt free. I felt light. I had no sense of time except for the fact that the sun started to go down, right? That's the kind of alignment that helps us be in integrity with who we are, in right relationship with who we are. But it also is the blueprint for creative expression. Because now all of this energy is free to move through our body, to manifest, to come to fruition. And it's no longer being stifled and stuffed and bottled down into part of our body with the lid thrown on it and the lock turned. Because when we block the flow of energy, this is where a lot of dis-ease, disharmony, illness comes from. Emotions are energy in motion. So if you were to peel back all of the stories that you've been told about how you should be, how to define your worth, what is too much or not enough, and you were to sit with that little girl inside of you and ask her what she wants to do, how does she want to play? I invite you to sit with this thought and maybe journal, or if you do pelvic steaming, sit while you steam and think about what comes up for you around this, but being able to identify what makes you feel alive and the same kind of carefree joy that you felt as a child is going to help your whole expression of self, the way you move through the world, what you're able to create and manifest and bring into the world. It's going to be in integrity with who you are, and it will feel effortless. So I invite you to get curious and ask that little girl, what brings you joy? And even if it's just 5 minutes, read a book that brings you joy. Turn on music that used to make you dance as a child and dance in your bedroom. Anything like that will help you to be able to come home to yourself and tap into the creativity to bring forth what is meant to be here in this world, whether it is a little human or it's a project, a career. Your creativity is your superpower as a womb-bearing person. Unlock her magic. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Reproductive Rebel. Reproductive Rebel is recorded by certified peri-steam hydrotherapist and acutonics practitioner, herbalist, and Chinese nutritional therapist Adrienne Irizarry of Moon Essence LLC. If you are interested in setting up an appointment for one-on-one support, ordering from our store, or checking out our course offerings, visit our website at moonessence.life. Be sure to subscribe to our newsletter and get insider information on upcoming events and offerings. Join the conversation. Like and follow us at Moon Essence Me on Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn. Your voices make this program possible. Thank you all for your continued support.